Hello everybody, my name is Spoons Rattling, and welcome to another video combining a couple of franchises that I really quite like in Godzilla and Warhammer, and I figured we'll start with one of my favorite forms of Godzilla for this series, Burning Godzilla, or Meltdown Godzilla as I call them here. Let's get right into it. So Godzilla, the one we're looking at today, if you're unfamiliar, is known as the Heisei Godzilla, so the Godzilla from the late 80s and early 90s. And he stands at 100 meters tall, which, if you're unaware, is about 3 Warlord Titans stacked on top of each other, so in terms of size, he certainly fits right in. He's also immune to most types of weaponry, showing little to no effect from even heavy tank rounds or artillery, missiles from jets, and so on. Though he does have some certain weapons that have a specific effect against him. In Godzilla 1984, or The Return of Godzilla, they use cadmium weapons, which slow his internal nuclear reactor, as he is, of course, a mutated monster that is born from a nuclear bomb. Of course, the version that we're specifically looking at, Burning Godzilla, is kind of past that, as his home of Birth Island unfortunately exploded and bathed him in so much radiation that he started to climb in heat and began burning and eventually approaching meltdown. Obviously, Godzilla's most famous technique is the atomic breath or heat ray, depending on, what you think. And as he gets powered up, he gets the spiral heat ray, and eventually the infinite spiral heat ray, which was an attack powerful enough to one-tap almost all of his enemies, except his last one. And even then, it took, I believe, 2 or 3 attacks from the infinite spiral heat ray to take down his final foe. And the main thing with the infinite spiral heat ray, which is a real mouthful, is that it gets significantly stronger each time it's used. Infinitely so, they say. And to really drive home that Godzilla is not just immune to modern-day weaponry, his human opponents in the JSDF, or Japan Self-Defense Force, or G-Force, whatever you want to go with, depending on which movie you're on, they field some rather crazy sci-fi weaponry from sort of almost flying saucer type vehicles that can reflect Godzilla's atomic breath to cannons that are able to freeze Godzilla, and they field these things called maser cannons, which are extremely powerful laser weapons that actually did, at least upset Godzilla and cause him pain. It's obvious that Godzilla is extremely durable. He actually has regenerative abilities, thanks to his mutant origins. And he's also a psychic, which is something I'm not sure a lot of people know. But Godzilla, in the Heisei era, was psychic and possessed extremely powerful psychic abilities, but not in the sense of like mind bullets from Warhammer 40k Psychers, but more so in the ability to reject mind control and connecting in a telepathic sense, surpassing the human most powerful psychic even when she was using a powered-up ability, or powered-up item that helped her be more psychically able when she was piloting Mechagodzilla. So Mechagodzilla, let's sort of wrap this up. Mechagodzilla, or not Mecha, sorry, normal Godzilla, is a massive monster that dwarfs even the largest of war machines that the 41st Millennium sees, and even some of the ancient ones like Warbringer Nemesis Titans. And its atomic breath is more than powerful enough to level, entire sections of a city at once, cause massive explosions. Obviously, it emits radiation. It is atomic breath, after all. And is also proved effective against vehicles. So really, he is honestly a great fit. And I wanted to give him a datasheet in-game, which is what the next slide is. So, fitting, he is 3,000 points. This guy is meant to be pretty much the only model you can field in a huge game. And his name is Godzilla at 1200 degrees Celsius, which was his meltdown point, and the final moments before he died, but that gave him access to his most powerful techniques. He can move 10 inches a turn. He's toughness 18 to prove just how durable he is against literally any type of weapon used against him, from, again, things like bunker busters, pretty much anything. I gave him a 2+ save, again, just he's meant to be extremely durable. He has 150 wounds. He has leadership 4+, because unsurprisingly, Godzilla is not exactly easy to scare. He has OC 25, just to make sure that anything he stands on truly does belong to him. So, in terms of the ranged weapons, I obviously wanted to give him his most powerful technique, the Infinite Spiral Heat Ray, which has the Torrent, Blast, and Hazardous special rules. It has a 36-inch range, attacks 4d6 plus 5, so a lot of attacks. It's meant to just annihilate almost anything it hits. It's at strength 26, so it's wounding, I believe, everything except Titans in the game on 2s. It is AP 5 and damage 10. And it has a special ability in his abilities section called Infinite Heat Ray, and each time this model attacks with its Infinite Spiral Heat Ray, after the first time, so in Battle Round 2, then 3, then 4, and so on, you add 10 to the damage characteristic. So it just becomes more powerful as it goes on, and as he gets closer to his final state. In terms of melee weapons, I gave him just Burning Claws and Tail, which have devastating wounds. There's 15 attacks, they hit on 2s, strength 26 again, only AP 4 this time, and damage 10. And in case you're playing in some truly apocalyptic games, I gave him a special rule called There Can Be Only One, where you can only have one model with the Heisei Godzilla keyword, which he has, along with Godzilla 1200 Degrees, Titanic Epic Hero, and Monster. His faction is obviously Kaiju, and let's get on to the rest of his abilities. Now, since he is literally at the end of his life, his body is melting from just the insane heat required to finally take down his final opponent, who, if you don't know, was Destoroyah. So I've given him a Feel No Pain to represent, bullets sinking into melting flesh and not doing anything, passing through parts of his body that are effectively already dying, just to make him, at least somewhat durable. I gave him a 6+ invulnerable save, just to represent, he can save on any weapon, no matter how powerful it is. He has Deadly Demise 5d6 plus 5, because if you haven't seen Godzilla vs. Destroyer, Destoroyah, let me make sure I pronounce that right. When Godzilla was about to melt down, they realized that if it was uncontrolled, Godzilla's meltdown would create an explosion big enough to essentially destroy the entire planet. It would completely level everything and leave the surface of the planet basically uninhabitable. So for the rest of his abilities, we have his critical heat level, which at the end of each phase, each enemy unit within 8 inches suffers d6 plus 3 mortal wounds. This is to show how the heat of Godzilla is coming off of him. At the end of Godzilla vs. Destoroyah, he was letting off so much heat that the ground was also starting to burn up, was starting to melt, and his final opponent was actually destroyed because it couldn't handle the heat of falling from the sky right onto the now superheated ground. So I figured anyone that's getting too close to this guy is going to start feeling the heat really quickly. Infinite Heat Ray, we already went over that. That is his sort of special ability with his weapon. And the next ability is World Ending Meltdown. So when this model rolls for its Deadly Demise ability, it activates on a 2+ instead of on a 6, and it affects every unit within 24 inches. So basically, when this guy goes down, he's going to explode, and he is going to annihilate the overwhelming majority of your army. But of course, you killed him, and chances are you can then go on to win the game. It's sort of his Godzilla's last laugh. And since this guy is so enormous, he can move over and through terrain features. If it would end its move on top of a terrain feature, that terrain feature is destroyed, so it's removed from the map, and the footprint of that terrain becomes difficult terrain, and Godzilla himself is unaffected by difficult terrain. So he can walk through buildings and instantly destroy them if they would get in his way, which is befitting of Godzilla. And to give reference, if you wanted Godzilla to be in scale with Warhammer, again, he'd need to be 3 Warlord Titans tall on the tabletop, so he would come in at, what would that be, 8-9 feet tall? So I don't expect you to run that as a model, but really any sort of large Godzilla action figure. I have one on my table right now who is absolutely not in scale, but he is quite large, and he would work. But there's also other Godzilla figures that you can find on the market that are much taller. Again, this is just sort of a fun thing for apocalypse-style games where Godzilla's rampaging through everything. That does bring us to the end of this episode, which is the first episode of this series. I'm going to do more. This was something that I fell in love with recently. I saw Godzilla -1, which you haven't seen it. See it. It's fantastic. And I wanted to combine one of my favorite Godzillas with Warhammer. I already have the next video in the works for my second favorite kaiju after the Big G-Man himself, and was the main opponent of Burning Godzilla, the incarnate of the Oxygen Destroyer, Destoroyah, which, yes, that is how you pronounce his name, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.